The need for an adequate defense establishment.
So new clues are starting to appear about who suffers from long COVID and who doesn't, reports the National Geographic. Anywhere from 10 to 50% of COVID cases are said to suffer from some form of long COVID or lingering symptoms, yet scientists have been unable to understand so far a lot about what causes it. Some studies in the past have pointed to genetic or microbiome factors, but a new study that came out this month identified 4 risk factors, which, quote, virtually all long COVID sufferers had at least one of. So the factors are type 2 diabetes, measurable levels of COVID RNA in the blood during initial infection, circulating Epstein-Barr virus early in the infection, or a high level of autoantibodies. Of course, the antibodies and the RNA thing, people won't necessarily know about or be able to control, but if you have diabetes 2 or mono, maybe don't go to that concert.
What are the 4 again? So the first one is type 2 diabetes.
Sure.
Which I get, and unfortunately I'm working my way towards having due to my weight, but luckily I'm keeping it at bay. So what was the second one?
So the second one is measurable levels of COVID RNA in the blood during the initial infection. And that is like there's
if
nothing.
I have a cold and then I get COVID?
It's specifically COVID-19 RNA. So
if I don't get it, if I have COVID and then I get COVID, it's bad.
Well, so for this one, these are things that you can use to identify who is going to end up with long COVID, right? Okay. So if you get COVID and the doctors say, hey, there's a lot of this RNA in your bloodstream.
Okay, gotcha. I gotcha.
Then that means, okay, you are now you're much more at risk to develop these symptoms.
Okay, so that's not really a symptom that can be checked ahead of time. That's like if you get COVID and there's a massive buildup in your system, you're going to have long COVID probably.
Right. And the high level of autoantibodies is kind of the same thing, but that's also something like if you have any kind of autoimmune condition, that can cause that. So that's one I think a lot of people know. If you have an autoimmune disease, then
my wife had COVID and she has autoimmune issues and she has long COVID, but luckily not like a lot of people. She basically, her taste and smell is still just not right from like 6 months ago. I don't know if that counts as long COVID. I'm not trying to belittle, people because I do work with a guy who basically on and off will lose all energy. Like he'll be back to himself. And then one day he can't make it out to the mailbox and back without feeling like he's pushing himself. And this is a guy who 2 years ago hiked to the top of Mount Kilimanjaro. So he's not like, wussy.
Yeah. So remember 10 to 50% of COVID cases, that's a lot of cases, but I looked into it because I'm like, that's crazy, but not all long COVID is like you're debilitated forever. It's if you have any kind of thing that lasts beyond the initial infection. That counts.
Yeah. Counts as long COVID. And then that third one was mono.
Epstein-Barr virus, which is what causes mono. So if you've got that, then COVID can apparently linger.
Well, there's an argument to keep your schools, because isn't that where all the smooch and kissing diseases happen? Is in elementary schools?
High school. Well, I don't know.
I have never heard of a grown-up having mono.
Kissing.
That's all I'm saying. Anytime I've ever heard of mono, it was 13 to 17.
Oh, really? Okay.
And that's my scientific expertise.
I think you can get it as an adult, but
I'm sure you can.
It sounds like it's one of those things that's much more common. So, which such people are generally much more resistant to COVID. So that's good then, I guess. But it's nice that they're working this out.
Well, I can tell you this. Most people I've ever known to get mono are 13 to 17. So if ever I meet a grown-up with mono, I'm going to wonder how they got it.
Yeah. Oof. Yeah. Can't it be? I thought it could be transmitted via coughing and stuff.
Yeah, but that's not funny. That's not funny.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
Just stepping on your jokes here.
Yeah. No. Funny stuff only. Reality is depressing, Kara.
This is the story of a young, red-blooded American boy.
Due to the current federal Senate subcommittee investigation of sex and violence on television, no scenes, we repeat, no scenes of the motion picture The Night of Bloody Horror are allowed to be shown on this station.
The producers strongly recommend this film for mature audiences only.